Here's the old intake I took off. As you can see, it's not very, the airflow on it isn't the best. Besides it's dirty, it's nasty, it needed to be cleaned. Something fierce. There's like a 1/4 inch of grease and oil everywhere on it. Hopefully I take better care of the new one so it doesn't get that nasty. Yeah, you can see there's a lot of rust in the water passage. It's not very high. It has small intakes, you know, the vacuum hoses and the vacuum lines that came from it were just kind of in a weird spot. And yeah, it wasn't the best design, I guess, but it worked fine for what I was using it as. The new one, higher rise, bigger intakes, although these are for the 454 TBIs. So it will go from a smaller TBI to here, so I have to figure out how to make that transition smoother, just because air doesn't like sharp edges when traveling at a high rate of speed. A lot of the plugs are in different spots, so that's going to be kind of an issue. I got to reroute a bunch of things. You know, the water plug is much smaller on this one. The main vacuum plug comes back here, and on this one it came from right up here in the front. There's just a lot of different plugs, a lot of different places. It didn't have these two up here, you know, it just had this one, but there's all these different plugs in the intake that I'm going to take out and save for, because I'm a hoarder. But intake, I'm going to do thermostat, temp sensor, plug these two holes. There's nothing really next to the throttle body. This one I'm going to use for my vacuum line for the line booster. This one is the output for the heater, and these So we got power back. I installed the thermostat housing, the temp sensor, these two plugs. Those are just sitting in there for the vacuum line for the brake booster and the heater core line. Here's the setup I'm gonna have. The one issue I'm seeing right now is this throttle cable holder. I'm gonna use the one that they got that comes with the intake, but I'm gonna bend this little thing up the opposite direction and then bend these things the opposite direction. But to use this top mount, I'm going to cut this right here and then weld it onto here. Hopefully they're the same type of metal. We're about to find out. Should be interesting. So here's how I'm gonna weld her together. I'm adding this little, keeping this little edge on here for a little more rigidity. I might put a little bar. Nah, this should be fine.
What do you think? Decent welds. I don't know why my hands are shaking so bad right now. Looks like it got good enough penetration. I don't even need to put a bead on that side. I'm going to at the beginning. Tell me what you think of my welding abilities. I can take it, I swear. It's all done, welded together and installed. I used some blue Loctite on those two bolts. Red's the only color I had of spray paint from when I worked at a tractor dealership, so I guess it's gonna be that pretty ugly red I got there, but whatever. So I got my silicone or RTV, whatever, all laid out. Probably not the prettiest, but I think it'll work. Tech tip, if you're going to be working over your intake, tape it off. It really sucks to drop a bolt down there and then sit for the next hour and a half fishing it out with a magnet. It really would have sucked if it wouldn't have been a steel bolt. So, if this bolt is installed, this is where the other bolt needs to go on this line. I don't know what would be better, to re-drill this hole or just to grind this out a little farther up here. So I decided I am going to grind this down to make this hole a lot better. Then I'll cut the tabs off. But I'm going to reverse it so it'll suck this closer to the coil, so the fuel lines have a little extra room. Okay, so I got the coil in. I got it sucked as close to the distributor as I could. It's all bolted in there, and I got that one plug in there. The next issue we have is what I'm going to do with the fuel lines. I think I could go straight there. If I remove the spacer, which kind of sucks it down and puts it right where the throttle linkage would go. So it would be right there and kind of get in its way, even though it was at a down angle. So put the spacer back. Going to be kind of a reach, but I think if I rebend this piece, which I bent up because I didn't think it was gonna fit right for the spacer, I think it'll work. Maybe not as an intensive angle as it used to be, but something so the fuel lines can travel, you know, right over the top of this into the back of here. There's a little connection, a little mount that's holding the fuel lines back there, right back here on top of the transmission. You probably can't see this, but my finger's touching it. That I'm gonna loose. I'm gonna loosen it, pull the fuel line through to get a little more length, so it'll actually reach the back of the TBI. So basically, all the work I did on this, I'll have to redo, except the welding. I'm gonna keep the welded. I already fit all the connections in here, and they all fit and they work. So, yep, got a plan forward. So I have that extra bolt holding the fuel lines down removed. They have quite a bit more movement now. I'm gonna install them. I'm gonna install everything and then just zip tie the fuel lines in place, make sure they're not rubbing on anything. I might add some rubber grommets in some areas so they don't rub. If they do rub, they're not going to completely break, but yeah, I needed that extra just so I can connect to the back of the TBI. Next part of this project is going to be this bar. There used to be, on the other intake, there's a bolt right here that it just connects to. Today I'm using a handle off the barbecue I didn't install because I didn't think I needed it to fix the 92. So how I'm gonna build this piece, so I'm gonna take this rod that's quite a bit smaller, but whatever, it'll work. Mark it right here and weld it. So I'm going to mark this line right here and this line right here to know that if these two line up, it should be right. And then I'm going to take this piece, mark, and I know if I actually cut the line I just made, or on this side of the line, I should be good. Have it tacked together with awful looking tacks, and it seems to, I think it'll work. Just need to finish welding her up. I'm a grinder today, not a welder. Well, got her installed. Good and tight. I had to put an extra washer down here because it was kind of rubbing right there. But she's installed. When I put the TBI spacer on my intake, you could tell the spacer's a lot smaller than the actual holes on the intake. So I use the old hammer trick on this, where you put a piece of paper on it and you kind of hammer around it so it makes an outline of it. You can still see the bolt holes. And then I cut out these holes. So I'll put that on top of here. And then I'm gonna cut out or grind down that little extra edges on here. So this will match up. The bottom of it will match up correctly to this, so there is no edges. And the top will still match up to the TBIs. I marked out the holes with a permanent marker. Now I'm just going to grind her down. clean matchup now. So I'm gonna install the TBI. Well, first things first, I'm gonna cut some gaskets, then install the TBI. Good enough for the girls I date. Never say that in front of your wife. Gets her upset. I'm gonna hook up the fuel lines, then move the TBI to exactly where I want it. I got the TBI with the spacer mounted. I put a piece of old gasket right there, taped it up, and then zip tied it, just so the fuel lines won't rub on the coil. I did down there where the fuel lines run, I did zip tie it to some other stuff just to make sure it doesn't rattle loose and build a hole in itself. So I got the throttle cable holder reinstalled. So I got all the cables installed. Luckily the throttle cable didn't need adjusting, because it doesn't adjust, at least it didn't. It's how I saw it, this one. The transmission cable, you push this button and it'll slide in and out. So you want to put it out wide open throttle and then push the button, that'll adjust that. For this one, there's two clamps, two clips on the bottom of this that you pull together, and this will pop up, and then this will slide in and out. For this one, you want to keep just regular and then push it down, because it's a, I guess, a push cable instead of a pull. So just hold it regular and adjust it, and then once it's adjusted at idle, I guess, just let it go. I need to lash all these valves because well, they're all pretty loose. So I lashed the valves when 1 was at top dead center, and I lashed the valves when 6 was at top dead center, because the exact opposite valve should be open. So changed the oil, or I drained the oil, so I can't start it right now. The only problem I have is I don't have the vents in it, and I don't have the actual hardware I was going to do to install the vents. So I'm going to take some of the old hardware, cut it up, and jerry rig it. Boom. And this one just fits right in there. Hopefully I don't have to drive too long, or I don't have that much positive pressure in my crankcase, so it won't blow that off. After doing all this work, I got to change the oil because there's probably some nasty stuff that actually made it to the oil pan. All right, actual first start. See if she goes. Pretty sure my timing's off. That's not good. Trying to see if the injectors are firing. See if I'm getting fuel, because I don't. Yeah, it might not be timing. Pulled the #1 spark plug out. With my timing being that far off, I'm gonna have to put her at top dead center and start all over. The engine at top dead center, pulled the cap off the distributor, and yeah, it's about 30 degrees off, so I installed it wrong. So I'm gonna pull it out, rotate it, and then reinstall it. Well, Pretty sure I should have listened to everybody that was giving me advice on this. Pretty sure I was 180 out. I just swapped it, or reversed the distributor. Let's see if she starts. This will be the first start. Huh. Yep. Yep, I'm an idiot. 180 out. So she runs pretty good, besides being almost out of gas because I screwed around and tried to start her 18,000 times with her 180 out. See how she does on the interstate, or I don't know, highway. She's not shifting very smooth. But this guy's gonna cut me off. But it seems to be running pretty good. I mean, seems to be a little bit louder than it was, which, yeah, I mean, I'm a redneck, so it's way of life. But runs pretty good. I'm gonna go fill the tank up and continue the test drive.